Hey, what's up guys, it's Nick2, and today I'm going to be showing you guys all of the best weapon mods in the entire game, so you guys know which mods that you should be looking out for in order to boost your damage by just an absolute ton. Weapon mods actually make a really big impact in this game, so knowing which ones to use is incredibly important. Over the course of the past week or so, I've had just a ton of people asking me, which weapon mod should I use if I don't have X, which is like what I would usually recommend them, right? If they don't have what I would recommend them, what do they use? Well, for a while I didn't really know what to respond to that with, because I basically just have always had the best weapon mod since the demo, because it came on one of the demo legendaries, and I never really had a reason to swap off of it. Therefore, I didn't really test a lot of the other weapon mods, so I couldn't really tell them, oh, here's a list of really good ones. So yesterday we tested a whole bunch of them on stream. If you don't already follow me on stream, what are you doing, dude? Just go follow me on Twitch. Yesterday we tested a bunch of them, and after reading through a lot of them, testing a lot of them, I think we have some pretty good information to share with you guys. I'd like to think I have a pretty good perspective on which mods are good. The problem with weapon mods is that it kind of is contextual, like it depends on if you're doing a weapon damage build, a very specific build, or like an anomaly power build. I'm going to try to cover everything. I don't really know a good way to structure this without it requiring hours and hours of editing, so I'm pretty much just going to hover over most of the mods. We're going to quickly speed run through some of the ones that aren't as impactful, and then I'll try to provide additional context for all of the better ones and in which situations they are actually the best, etc. I'll probably talk about which ones are the best as we go over them. However, if you don't want to watch through the whole video, which I would recommend because it does give some much needed context, but if you don't want to watch the whole video, I will probably just leave something in the description that just explains like my rankings of them, kind of. But again, kind of hard to rank things black and white, and it does depend on the build that you're going to try to make, but I'll do my best to do that. Also, one thing to keep in mind, my experience with these weapon mods is entirely anecdotal. There is a little bit of math behind it, I guess, but a lot of it is situational and circumstantial. But the main purpose of this video is to just show you guys which mods you should be looking out for if you don't have the absolute best ones, so that you guys can actually perform well without having, you know, perfect legendaries, etc. All right, let's get into it. Oh, one more thing. Sorry, I know you hate me. One more thing. 86% of you guys aren't subscribed. If you could sub, it would really help me out, because I'm really trying to get to 100k. We're right there, so every little bit helps. 100k is my overall goal. Would appreciate it. There's a kiss from me to you. All right, let's just get into the mod. So first off, we're just going to take a look at tier 1, tier 2, and then tier 3. Going to try to go through a lot of these early ones pretty quick. Sorry if I speed over your favorite one, but basically I just want to get through this quickly, but also giving you guys enough information so you know which ones to look out for. So first off, Vampire. Killing shots give you 15% skill leech boost. If you're doing a lot of damage with skill leech, this actually works for like blighted rounds. It doesn't work for twisted rounds, but this is pretty decent for some survivability because it works with certain skills. So if you're using a lot of skills, this can heal you up a lot. Shield Maiden, I haven't actually ever used this, but I imagine it's a pretty low amount of shield, whatever. Survivability usually isn't what I look out for on weapon mods, because I'm primarily trying to go for damage. So a lot of the survivability ones I'm not going to talk about too much. Ricochet. Ricochet is pretty bad because the ricochet damage scales off of your weapon damage, not actually the overall hit that you're hitting for. Therefore, Ricochet almost does 0 damage, so I wouldn't look out for that. Anomaly Surge is meh at best, does a little bit of damage, but it's not too bad for a starting out one. So any of the status effect ones on a tier 1, it's going to last for 8 sec, or it's going to be on an 8-second internal cooldown. If I ever say ICD, that means internal cooldown, so I don't have to keep saying internal cooldown. So all of these are going to be on an 8-second ICD, which means that you just don't want to bother using them because that's way too long to have any actual benefit from it. Flip of Amalthea, only 30% chance. We're just going to ignore that. Critical Point is okay, but basically the way that it works is by default you have a 5% crit chance. This makes it go up to 20%, but this is only helpful if you're never hitting headshots. Maybe on like a Trickster it's okay, but I wouldn't really recommend it that often. Probably only on like a Trickster. If you're using a shotgun or something, you could basically see it as a 15% damage boost if you literally never hit crits, because crits are going to be roughly double the damage. And then Fireworks. Fireworks is meh, 3-second ICD, so not that good. First things first, Armor Piercing on the first shot doesn't matter. Fusion Blast, low damage. Shot Devour actually isn't that bad survivability wise. I think it also gets affected by healing received percent, so not that bad for survivability reasons, but again, we want that damn. Essence Thief, I don't know how much health it gives, couldn't tell you. Probably better to go Soul Devour. Killer Medic, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't actually work for solo. It only heals your teammates, so don't use that. Ashen Bullets, pretty much same thing with all the status effect ones. And then we have Clip Combustion. Doesn't do too bad of damage, but it's on a 2-second ICD and it gets beaten by T2 and T3 ones. And it's also a reload mod. There's different categories for weapon mods in my opinion. Anything that says reloading on it is going to be entirely useless if you're doing a anomaly power, or sorry, like a twisted rounds or a blighted rounds or a volcanic rounds build, because the second you reload, your rounds go away. So ignore all of those. Ruler of Leeches is actually probably the best survivability weapon mod in the game. Killing shots could be 20% weapon leech. 20% is actually a lot, guys. So if you're having survivability problems, if you can find a good purple with this on it by default, and then you can put on whatever else you want, that's probably going to save you. Soul Devour is pretty good too, but it relies on actually getting kills. 20% leech and also it lasting for 20 seconds. Insanely good. Livestock, reloading gives you health. It actually gives a lot of health, so that's probably good if you're reloading. Sorry for getting spammed on Discord. Alright, we turned on streamer mode, so that won't be a problem anymore, sorry. Hot Blood, probably the best T1 mod that there is in terms of damage. Shots past your enemies whose health was below 50%. The only problem is that it hits 3 enemies, right? But it's going to scale off of your weapon damage, so it's not going to do a ton of damage. The main benefit, low ICD, and it inflicts burn, which is kind of cool. And then we have Proliferation. It's basically just going to make other enemies inflicted with the status that the previous one had on it. I don't think this is ever useful, ever. If you guys have a good use for it, let me know, but I don't think there is. Tier 2. Anomaly Enhancement. Surprisingly, one of the best ones if you're trying to do a pure firepower build, because it's just going to give you a passive firepower bonus. Even if you have like 0 anomaly power, this is actually going to be pretty good. There's also some builds, I'm not sure how viable there are, but there's some builds where you can get a lot of anomaly power and then maybe actually pop this on and get a decent amount of firepower to try to go like hybrid. Haven't tested that yet, but that is a thing. But this is pretty good if you're looking to do a gun damage build and you have literally nothing else. This is pretty good as it's just going to give you a passive extra firepower boost that you otherwise wouldn't have. The only downside is that it's literally just single target to just increase your single target damage by a little bit. Bone Shrapnel. This is the big boy. Bone Shrapnel does a ton of AoE, and this is probably one of the better ones. The main thing that's good about it is that it's a tier 2, so you can get it on pretty much any weapon that you want. So Bone Shrapnel, really good to look out for if you're trying to go for that AoE damage. The only thing is that it is a killing shots thing, so if you're playing like an AP build or something and you're not killing enemies with your actual shot, Bone Shrapnel isn't going to end up doing, you know, a ton of damage there. But if you're playing like a firepower build, like on a Techno or Trickster or whatever, if you pair this with some other mods, Bone Shrapnel ends up doing a lot of damage, especially if you're having problems with AoE clearing, like when using a pump shotgun or something. Striga, 30% of crit damage returned to you as health. Pretty good survivability wise if you're landing crits, but again, we don't care about that too much. And then we have all the statuses, only a 4-second ICD for tier 2. So if there's a specific reason that you want to apply statuses, it's not that bad when you have it on tier 2. Maybe for playing like, for example, Pyro, and you want to inflict Ash on enemies very consistently without having to wait for your burn. Using T2 Ash actually isn't that bad because usually you'll have it up for a boss. However, if you want it for ad clear, it's not going to be there all the time because of the 4-second ICD. Moving on, Damage Link. Damage Link is meh. A lot of you guys are going to be like, dude, Damage Link is absolutely insane. I tested it. I didn't feel like it was doing a lot of damage, but at the end of the map, it said it just did a ton of damage. I don't know if I'm crazy or if it just seems like it's scaling out of control. A lot of my chat said that the numbers is basically bugged. A lot of the things that I've tested, it seems like the numbers after the mission were a little bit incorrect, but it's really difficult to tell, especially because it seems like Damage Link gets affected with blighted rounds because that already does AoE, so it's a little difficult to tell. Damage Link isn't that bad. The problem with T2 is that it's a 4-second ICD and it's not going to give you a ton of extra damage, so this is meh. It's okay if you're trying to do some AoE, but I think Bone Shrapnel is better in pretty much every situation. But if you guys really like it, feel free to use it, I guess. But the reason that I'm making this video is to give you guys my anecdotal experiences and what I think is actually good. So if you don't believe me, I don't know what to tell you. Okay, Icebreaker. Icebreaker is actually insanely good if you are applying freeze consistently. So if you're using like Cold Snap or something, this could pretty much act as your Bone Shrapnel. But I think Bone Shrapnel is just more consistent because it's just on killing shots, whereas Icebreaker is on frozen enemies. So I pretty much just see it as a less consistent Bone Shrapnel. You're going to hear me say that a lot because Bone Shrapnel is just that good, because the fact is that it does 200k damage. It's on a 1-second ICD, and it's just based on killing shots, whereas a lot of these other ones are like killing shots against enemies with X, or critical shots but a long ICD, etc. So Icebreaker pretty good. Then we have all the status ones. And then we have Resistance Breaker. Resistance Breaker is pretty decent if you're trying to get some extra single target damage. I don't think it's useless. The thing is that not every enemy actually has resistance. The only time that I find resistance to be particularly good is on like Brood Mothers, because they give themselves like a complete status resistance, if you've ever noticed that, and then you can't crit them. I haven't extensively tested this, but pretty much it seems like resistance doesn't help a lot outside of that. However, if there's certain elites that you're having a lot of trouble with, this could help you a lot because you pretty much have it up all the time. It lasts for 6 seconds and it's a 1-second ICD. And reducing their resistance by 35% is really good. And if the enemy has 100% resistance, let's say 35% is 35% damage, right? So that's actually really, really crazy. If you are doing damage with like twisted, blighted rounds, anything that does anomaly damage, resistance will do that. This is not armor, so if you're trying to do, you know, gun damage without one of those mods on, or without one of those skills that is going to go through armor, this does nothing for you. Minefield, literally just a worse bone shrapnel. Tried it. The problem is that like the explosives have to actually hit all the targets, where bone shrapnel just works all the time. If you don't have bone shrapnel, minefield is kind of like a budget one, what I would say. Claymore, tested this, 4-second ICD, too long of an internal cooldown to be pretty good, but it does provide some single target value. And then we have Stiffening. Storm Whip, one of my favorite ones, however the damage is just a little bit low. Storm Whip is basically like Storm Whip and Claymore are pretty much in the same camp here. However, the damage isn't bad. If you're looking for just some free damage, basically like one of the main purposes of this video is like, if you have a purple weapon, you have one good mod to look out for, but you don't know what to put in the second slot or something like that. One of the main purposes of this video is just tell you what you can put in the second slot. Pretty much at first I would be like Anomaly Enhancement for a single target build, Bone Shrapnel if you want AoE, and if you want some more single target, you don't have Anomaly or whatever, you can look out for Storm Whip or Claymore, but it's not going to help you a ton, right? And then we have Vortex Chamber, that's reloading and it only inflicts slow, who cares? Clip Roller is good if you're playing Devastator. The problem is that it's going to eat ammo from the reserve, and also if you're using like a Twisted Rounds, Blighted Rounds, whatever, this is going to count as you reloading, which is going to take away your round skill. If it didn't, this would be the best weapon or ammo mod in the entire game, and Pyro would be fine just using this. Mark of the Stake, reloading weapons inflicts burn, who cares, not worth using. Brain Eater's interesting. A lot of people really like Brain Eater, especially because of the reliance on having ammo up all the time when you're using one of the rounds builds. In my opinion, Brain Eater is not worth using in any scenario other than the very particular scenario of playing Pyromancer. In almost every other scenario, I don't think it's worth it, because you will inevitably have to pair this with another way of getting ammo, because even if you are aimbotting, you are not going to have 100% accuracy, and you're going to run out of ammo. So then you'll have to pair this with some other ammo mod on your gear anyway, and you'd rather just rely on ammo mod on your gear, because weapon mods provide you so much extra damage. So Brain Eater, honestly, I would ignore. If you want to use it, whatever, but that's my 2 cents. Crematorium is pretty good for AoE CC, but if you're not playing Pyro, this gives you no damage benefit, but it is pretty helpful for crowd control. Reloading inflicts freeze, who cares? And then we have Perpetual Mobile. Perpetual Mobile is one of the best easy ways to make sure you never have ammo issues. If you use this, whenever you kill somebody when your mag is below 35%, instantly going to fill it up. One quick tip: if you just pop it on your weapon and then you just instantly swap the mod to whatever else you want, it's actually going to stay on your gun until you die. It's a bug. I reported it like 2 weeks ago, and they still haven't fixed it, so use that while it lasts, I guess, if you want. And then we have Death Change. Death Change is one of the other probably better single target-ish mods. So it just does damage, but it also hits multiple enemies. It does 193k damage over 3 seconds. The only problem with this is if you kill something before the dot is able to do all the damage, it's not going to scale that well. However, if you're having some problems with some single target mobs, Death Change is pretty much just a better Storm Whip and Claymore, because it does lower ICD and it does more damage. So that's actually what I'd recommend over those. Forgot about Death Change, to be honest with you. Oh, okay, now we're in tier 3 territory. There's a few that I'm missing. There's like 2 that I'm missing. I actually know which one they are. So this one is killing shots give you 33%. By the way, I don't remember all the weapons that these come from. I remember some of them. I'll try to mention them as we go, but I don't remember all of them. So just look in your mod library, see what you have available to you, and then do that based on this. So this mod, pretty much when you kill something, it's going to give you 33% health back to you and your teammates. So that's pretty good for survivability. I believe it's a 3-second ICD. I would rather have weapon leech personally, but it's okay. And then we have ultimate bone shrapnel. Ultimate bone shrapnel is like kind of better tier 2 bone shrapnel. It's a longer ICD, but the thing is that it's going to detonate on crits, which means that it's actually going to hit the main target as well as all of the off targets. And it's a little bit easier to maximize the amount of damage that you get from it. I would say that T2 and T3 bone shrapnel are pretty close together. A lot of the problems with the T3 mods, right, are that that's the one mod that you're using unless you're using it paired with, you know, whatever weapon that it dropped on. So a lot of the T3 mods are really going to be your better ones. So you don't want to waste something, you know, that isn't as good. Ultimate bone shrapnel does a ton of AoE damage, and it can help you out a little bit in single target. I think some of the other ones that we're going to mention are better for like doing a lot of single target damage with like, you know, pure firepower builds. But we'll get there in a second. And then we have all of the statuses. So we'll just knock this out real quick. For T3, they are all 1-second ICDs, which means that they're really good. So if you don't have a way of applying vulnerability, this can be really good. Or if you want to use, for example, on Trickster Vampiric Mag to get ammo back, you can use T3 Bleed from the shotgun that Tiago sells. Or if you want to use a mod where you do more damage to enemies with weakness, you can use this. Maybe you want to use the Absolute Zero with Icebreaker, you can use T3 Freeze. Blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of use cases for these. If you know the use cases, I would try those out. But they're pretty much only helpful in those scenarios. They're also helpful for like CC, I guess, but generally we want that dam. So look out for the damage stuff more often than not. Winter Blast, this is good for CC. That's about it. This mod here is Embalmer's Rage. I have it, but I just didn't put it on this character yet. Embalmer's Rage is one of the best weapon mods in the entire game, particularly for Trickster, but it's also good for the other ones. I don't have it here, so I'll just read it to you. Basically what it is killing shots make your next subsequent shots all critical shots. It lasts for 5 seconds. Oh, I had a burp attack there. It lasts for 5 seconds with an internal cooldown of 4 seconds. So you can have it up very frequently. Really good for Trickster because you can't otherwise always land crits with shotguns. And also you gain extra damage being behind enemies. So this allows you to not only benefit from crit, but also getting damage from behind enemies. It's also good when you pair it with Brain Eater. That's the only scenario where I'd say that it's pretty good because you have a real good equilibrium between keeping ammo up. It's also good if you have bad aim. You put it on an Amber Vault on Techno, run around hip firing or whatever. It's really good for those reasons. Otherwise, it's not the best damage mod. Then we have Ultimate Damage Link. Pretty much the same as normal Damage Link, except the ICD is 1 second. I tried this. Pretty good AoE potential. I think other things have better AoE. However, this is still pretty good. I do think that the damage number gets inflated at the end of the mission, but I can't know for sure. Then we have Bombs Ahead. I don't like this one because killing shots turn enemies into a bomb and then they like blow up. And then it takes them a second to blow up and stuff, and it also doesn't do a ton of damage. I'd rather just use Bone Shrapnel. Then we have Golem Rising. Killing shots give you Golem Effect. 65% damage reduction when you kill somebody. Really good for survivability, but again, whatever. Dark Sacrifice. This is one that people say is bugged. I don't know that I would say that it's bugged. I think that the tooltip is just misleading. Basically, the way that people want it to work is that it's going to constantly drain your health so that you always have 75% weapon damage, in which case it would probably be the best weapon mod in the game. However, the way that it actually works when you're playing is that only when you're at 50% or lower health, when it's actually draining your health, then you get the weapon damage bonus. The second that you heal past 50%, which is all of the time because of weapon leech, etc., you don't get the damage bonus. So I think that's just the tooltip being misleading. I could be wrong, maybe it's bugged. Regardless, doesn't matter. Don't use this until they fix it or whatever. And then we have all of the status ones. I already talked about those. Ultimate Anomaly Surge. It's okay, but it gets outclassed by everything else and it requires you to hit crits. There's a lot of them that require crits, so if you don't have very good aim or you're playing a class where you can't hit crits, I wouldn't look out for those. But they are pretty good for classes like Techno. Another one is Legendary Minefield. I think this gets outclassed by Ultimate Bone Shrapnel. It's meh. You can pretty much, again, see it as a budget Ultimate Bone Shrapnel, but look out for that if you would like. Then we have Kinetic Stomp. Kinetic Stomp I would only recommend if you're playing in close range and you just want extra AoE damage, so it's pretty good on Trickster or it's good on Devastator. Otherwise, I wouldn't really recommend it. And we have Claymore Torrent. Tested Claymore Torrent. It's meh. It's pretty like meh. I mean, it does some single target and some AoE. Long ICD, the damage isn't fantastic, but it's okay. Then we have another status effect. T3 Storm Whip, pretty much the same thing as T2 Storm Whip. Decent damage, but not as much damage as other things. Then we have Dome of Protection. Haven't tried this one at all. It's probably okay, but it relies on you probably staying in the dome, so I wouldn't even bother. Don't remember what this one is. Sorry if I don't have it. Weightlessness. Shots put time rift. Good for CC, but otherwise not a lot of value. Wrath of Moloch does a little bit of damage. I think it just gets outclassed by like Ultimate Bone Shrapnel, but if you want to inflict burn on enemies, it's pretty cool, and it comes on Brain Eater, which is a pretty good gun. A lot of people like this one. It's pretty good. I think it gets beaten by other ones. Then we have Sandstorm. Sandstorm, again, pretty decent, does AoE damage, long ICD, and it requires enemies to be in the Sandstorm for that period of time, so I think other mods end up scaling better and just do more damage. Grand Opening, not great because the first bullet you're not going to hit a lot with. Fortress is probably one of the best ones in the entire game. The best thing about it is that it lasts all the time. You don't have to do anything to make it work, and it scales all of your damage. It scales your skill damage, your weapon damage, your other damage. It's really insanely good. Comes on the death shield. 43% extra damage bonus is just crazy. And you don't actually have to stack any armor for this to work. The default amount of armor at level 50 being 50k is enough for this, which leads me to believe that 1% damage is, or that 1k armor equals 1% damage with this mod. It only goes up to 43%, but you have the 43% all the time. Probably the best mod in the game. I'd look out for this all the time. And then we have Scrap Grenade. This is good if you're constantly reloading and shooting, but I think it's a little clunky and it's not all that great. Other ones are better. Killing Spree, best mod in the entire game after Fortress if you guys are looking for a damage build that is built around doing damage with your guns. I've used this entire time. 75% extra weapon damage all the time. Just absolutely insane. Either get this or Fortress is pretty much what I've been telling people. I'll give a quick synopsis at the end. Then Concentration Blast. Concentration Blast is basically a better Bone Shrapnel after testing it. Killing shots cause enemies to explode, dealing 100k damage, but it's multiplied by the maximum number of enemies, so it can do up to like 700k damage, and it's on a 1 second ICD. I tried this, and this was the second best mod that I used out of all the other ones, if we trust the damage at the end, but based on how it felt, I also cleared fastest with it. Based on how it felt absolutely crazy, so I'd highly recommend this, especially because the pump that it comes on is pretty good if you're playing Trickster, so you could use this paired with some other ammo stuff, and it's really good. Body Snatcher, kind of cool, but not worth it in my opinion. And then right here we have Moaning Winds. Moaning Winds, you can't really see it, but it says reloading creates a strong blast around you, dealing 387,000 damage to enemies in a range of 8 meters, 8 second ICD. This is insanely good for AP builds because you can put it on multiple weapons, and it also scales off of other damage. So for my Techno, I made an AP build where I had it on all 3 of my weapons. I shot, reloaded, swapped weapon, shot, reloaded, swapped weapon, shot, reloaded, swapped weapon, and I basically did 1 million damage per Moaning Wind. So this is absolutely insane, but if you're doing like a pure damage build, this is worthless. And then the next one that we have that's really good, probably the other best mod if you're trying to just do pure extra damage with crits, is Deadly Disturbance. Critical shots activate an unstable anomaly in your enemy, causing them to explode and dealing other damage to other enemies. So not only is it going to hit the main enemy for like 500k, it ends up hitting all the other enemies as well. This is pretty much just the best T3 mod for extra damage in my opinion if you are landing crits. Next to Concentration Blast. I think these two are the best ones if you're just trying to do extra damage that isn't like Fortress and Killing Spree. So these are incredibly powerful, and I think they outclass Bone Shrapnel, but they are T3 ones. Then we have Shadow Comet here, so if I close out you can see it. Shots call down a comet, dealing 210k damage to enemies. This is really good not only for just firepower, because it does a lot of extra damage, but also it does AoE damage, but it's mainly good for AP builds because you just shoot once and then it just hits multiple enemies. And also if you're using a gun that shoots multiple pellets like a shotgun, if it hits multiple enemies with all the pellets, you'll see like 5 comets land at the same time, which is really cool. And then that's really good. I'd look out for that. Ravenous Locust is meh, but it applies weakness. Long ICD damage isn't great. Singularity doesn't proc enough. Burst of Decay, you have no reason to apply Toxic really all that often, and it relies on you landing crits. You might as well just use T3 Toxic if you wanted to. Judgment Enforcer, I haven't tried it out all that much, but it requires you reloading and it only scales on weapon damage, and weapon damage is that high, so I wouldn't use that. Pinball only scales off of weapon damage, so it doesn't end up doing very much. Shots of Gauss, tried this, doesn't do a lot of damage because the amount of damage that it does just gets completely owned by everything else. Then we have Anomaly Mutation. This is actually really cool, but I don't think there's a very good use case for it, but it is pretty cool. And then Radiation Splash. This is good to apply Vulnerable if you want to apply Vulnerable, but otherwise not a lot of value. Whew. Okay, long video. I'm sorry, I wanted to go over everything. Basically, if you're playing a gun build, here's a quick synopsis. If you're playing a gun build, you want to look out for Killing Spree, Fortress, and then for other things, you would go like Bone Shrapnel, Shadow Comet, Anomaly Enhancement, Deadly Disturbance, Damage Link if you wanted, Concentration Blast, Storm Whip even isn't all that bad. And then you could try to pop on some survivability stuff. Sorry, my screen went black because I alt-tabbed and was looking at something. And then if you're trying to do an AP build, Storm Whip is okay, but ultimately Moaning Wind, Shadow Comet is your best combo. But also using Fortress is going to scale all the damage of your AP stuff. So Fortress is by far the best thing if you're trying to do AP stuff, because all of your damage scales off of Fortress. So any skill that you use is going to receive the 43% damage bonus. And then Moaning Winds also scales off of stuff, so that's really strong. So hopefully that covered everything. I'm going to write it down in the description. But yeah, sorry for the super long video, guys. I just wanted to go over everything. Thank you guys so much for watching. Love you guys. Oh, also, Embalmer's Rage, very good. Embalmer's Rage, very good. Okay. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.